Close your eyes and travel back more than 140 years. It's the 1880s. The streets of New York and Chicago are alive with horse-drawn carriages, street vendors shouting their wares, and the smell of coal burning from factories. The electric light is still a marvel in select homes, and the idea of flying above the clouds belongs only to dreamers. America is changing. Cities are growing taller, technology is advancing faster than anyone could imagine, and society is struggling to find its place in a world recovering from war, facing new inventions, and entering an age of opportunity and danger alike. This is the untold story of life in America in the Gilded Age. A story of politics, war, innovation, culture, and everyday survival. From the streets to the boardrooms, from the laboratories to the theaters, this is what life was really like in the 1880s. The 1880s were a decade of tension and transformation. America was still healing from the scars of the Civil War. Reconstruction had officially ended in 1877, but the southern states were filled with violence, discrimination, and racial tension. African Americans faced constant danger under Jim Crow laws, and lynchings were tragically common. Meanwhile, the White House saw more presidents than any decade since the 1840s. Rutherford B. Hayes, James A. Garfield, Chester A. Arthur, Grover Cleveland, and Benjamin Harrison. Their presidencies were marked by political corruption, assassination, and reform attempts. In fact, President Garfield was shot in 1881, shocking the nation and highlighting the dangers of political extremism. Internationally, America was beginning to stretch its influence. While not yet a global military power, naval modernization was underway. Wooden ships were replaced by steel, signaling a future where America would not be ignored on the world stage. But it wasn't just America facing conflict. Across the globe, wars reshaped borders and empires. The Aceh War in Indonesia, the First Boer War in South Africa, the Mahadist War in Sudan, and the War of the Pacific in South America were just a few of the ongoing battles that dominated headlines and international politics. Nature reminded the world of its power in dramatic ways. In 1883, the eruption of Krakatoa in Indonesia killed over 36,000 people and sent shockwaves around the globe. In 1887, China's Yellow River flooded, taking nearly 900,000 lives, one of the deadliest natural disasters in recorded history. Closer to home, America faced the Great Blizzard of 1888. Streets were buried under snowdrifts taller than houses. Thousands were stranded, and hundreds died. Infrastructure failures became painfully obvious, sparking reforms in urban planning and emergency services. Then, in 1889, the Johnstown flood in Pennsylvania devastated communities after the South Fork Dam collapsed, claiming over 2,000 lives. Relief workers, including the heroic nurse Clara Barton, struggled to help survivors in the aftermath. For Americans in the 1880s, disaster could strike anywhere, at any time. The 1880s were a golden era for invention. Thomas Edison illuminated New York City, while Charles F. Brush lit up Broadway with arc lights. The Pearl Street Station became the first central power plant in America, forever changing how people lived and worked. Electric tricycles and early automobiles began to appear. Carl Benz introduced the first commercially available automobile in 1886, while Nikola Tesla filed patents for his revolutionary AC induction motor. Submarines were no longer science fiction. Inventors like John Philip Holland, Gustav Zeder, and Isaac Peral experimented with underwater vessels, testing the limits of electricity and mechanics. Photography, phonographs, and even the first experimental motion pictures were beginning to capture the human experience. The seeds of modern entertainment, transportation, and communication were being sown, shaping the 20th century before it even began. Life in 1880s America varied dramatically depending on where you lived. In cities, tenement buildings housed dozens of families in cramped apartments. Streetcars rattled over cobblestones, and factory whistles dictated the workday. In rural areas, farmers relied on horse-drawn plows and seasonal labor while families spun, sewed, and canned their own food. Immigrants played a huge role in shaping the country. Chinese, Irish, and Scandinavian workers laid thousands of miles of railroad tracks, linking cities and towns across the continent. Italian and Swedish immigrants began new lives in America, bringing traditions, food, and culture that remain part of the American fabric today. Education was changing too. Schools began to expand, And cases like that of 8-year-old Mamie Tappé, who fought to desegregate San Francisco schools in 1885, showed that social change was slowly taking root. Yet daily life was full of hardship. Long work hours, disease, and limited medical knowledge made survival itself a struggle. The 1880s were also rich in culture. Literature flourished. Mark Twain's Huckleberry Finn captured the imagination, while Robert Louis Stevenson's Treasure Island thrilled readers with adventure. Fyodor Dostoevsky and Friedrich Nietzsche explored human psychology and philosophy, influencing generations to come. Art reached new heights. Vincent van Gogh painted the starry night and irises, changing the perception of color and emotion in painting forever. The Romantic musical style dominated Europe, while African American music and ragtime gained popularity in America. In architecture, cities began to reach for the sky. The Home Insurance Building in Chicago became the world's first skyscraper in 1885, and in Paris the Eiffel Tower rose in 1889, forever changing the city's skyline. Even leisure activities evolved. Theaters, parks like Moulin Rouge, and sports such as early baseball and judo created new avenues for entertainment and competition. Fashion in the 1880s was elaborate and expressive. Women wore corsets, layered skirts, and intricate hats, while men donned waistcoats, bowler hats, and polished boots. Clothing signaled class, profession, and taste, with urban centers leading trends that slowly spread to rural areas. Yet, not all attention-grabbing events were cultural. Infamous crimes like the Whitechapel murders by Jack the Ripper in 1888 captured global headlines, instilling fear while also revealing the dark underside of urban life. History remembers the personalities who shaped this era. Lawmen like Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday became legends in the Wild West. Outlaws like Billy the Kid and Jesse James captivated public imagination. Inventors, scientists, and explorers, from Edison to Tesla to John Joseph Montgomery, pushed humanity forward. Leaders like Queen Victoria, US presidents, and international diplomats navigated a world of empires, alliances, and conflicts. The 1880s was more than just a decade. It was a bridge between centuries, connecting the old world and the new. It was a time of triumphs and tragedies, innovation and tradition, conflict and creativity. People lived under the shadow of uncertainty, yet built the foundations of modern society. From the streets of New York to the laboratories of Europe, from the battlefields of Africa to the theaters of Paris, the world of the 1880s was alive with energy, ambition, and change. As we look back today, we see a world that was both familiar and foreign, a world that taught us resilience, inspired imagination, and reminded us that history is not just a collection of dates, but the lived experiences of those who came before us.